Okay, so now that we've finished with the detailing of this Rhino, now we're ready to begin the process of color application and texturing. Okay, so here we are. We've now finished up with all the detailing around the horn areas and also going back and working some of these areas of the body to get these nice wrinkles that run throughout. So now let's begin the process of texturing. So the first method that we're going to look at is a method called poly painting. And this is a method that really you were able to use even in previous versions of Zbrush, but now in Zbrush 3 the poly counts are able to be much higher. So now as a result we're now able to paint a lot more detail than what we previously could using these poly paint methods. So to illustrate what this poly painting method is, let me go ahead and just take my geometry and I'll drop it down to its lowest subdivision level just so this is a little bit easier to illustrate. So at the moment, right now, we have the color picker, and right now we can alternate between either the foreground or the background color, or the main and secondary colors. So at the moment, you'll see that as I come in and start to make adjustments, that we can start to choose different colors, and you may see your object here update automatically with whichever color you currently have selected. If not, you can first pick your color, and then go up to the color menu, that could be pulled down, and now fill your object with that color. Okay, and now you can see we have sort of this green color. Now the reason it turns sort of this muddy color of green is because right now we've chosen this green color, but it's also overlaid over this red material, which is the nature of this particular material we have selected. So that's perfectly normal. Let's go ahead and fill that object back with white. Okay, let's zoom back in on this. Alright, so if you start to modify your colors and you notice that over in your canvas that your object is updating with whatever color you happen to be choosing, what you'll first want to do is choose some kind of a base color, right? And then once you fill your object with a particular color, what you'll notice is now whenever you change your particular color that the object should no longer update. It should stay filled with the color that we filled it with. So to illustrate this poly painting method, let me just now choose a new color now that we have this object filled with white. And what you'll notice is, first of all, I need to turn off any kind of Z add or Z subtract, just turn both of those off, because now we no longer want to paint with any sort of deformation. We only want to paint with color. So make sure RGB is now the only button that's turned on. So with that being the only button turned on, what you'll now see is when I come in and begin to paint that we have now each one of these polygons that's able to hold a particular color. Alright, and that's pretty much the basis behind this poly painting. Each polygon can hold one color. Okay, so if I go back and fill my object with white again, okay, let's step up another subdivision level. And now you can see at a higher subdivision level, we now have a few more of these polygons that now we can come in and paint a little bit more detail with. And what you'll notice is that as our poly counts get higher and higher, we wind up with more and more of these polygons that are able to hold colors. Alright, so let me come in and we'll step up to the highest subdivision level so we can really see what this is going to do. Okay, so at this point, at subdivision level 6, what we hopefully have are enough polygons to where each individual polygon is roughly about the size of 1 pixel. So now what you'll notice is when we come in and paint, we now have a lot of detail that we can paint with compared to what we would have had before. So using this method, we can come in and basically hand paint all of our textures using these poly painting methods. Now the great thing about using this poly painting method is right now we're not truly painting any sort of a texture. Right now this is basically just vertex coloring. We have each polygon that's able to hold one color. So everything that we're going to be painting for the duration of this training kit is not at all dependent on your object's UV layout, because as I mentioned, we're not really painting any real 2D texture. Although we will take a look a little bit later at how we can convert this poly paint into a texture. So the first thing we need to do, Let's try to get everything back the way it was. Let's set our color back to white. Fill our object back with white, so that way we have everything that's been removed. Now, you'll notice that when I was coming in and painting, that we were painting, it was sort of overlaying the color that we had together with this red wax type material. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to switch from this red wax material to something that's going to give us a little bit better interaction. So let me try this matte cap white. There we go. So now we have an actual white surface that we can begin painting on. And now when I paint, the result that we see is much closer to what we would normally have. Okay? So let's first start by getting some kind of a base color assigned to this Rhino, something that we can actually use as its sort of beginning color. So the first thing that I'll do is actually try to sample this from one of the photographic references that we have. So let's press Control N, or rather let's first turn off the edit mode. Control N to clear off the canvas. And now let's switch to this plane. Okay. Now with this plane, let's go ahead and press Edit. Let's turn on a texture, and this texture will be the image that we want to be able to sample from. So let's import. All right, and in the reference folder, let's try to choose a file that we can use. Let's take a look through here. Let's try to grab this one, this Rhino head large. So open that up, and now you can see that this image is loaded up as the texture for this plane. So if we want to be able to sample an image from this, it's as simple as just taking your main color, click, and drag it onto the color that you want to be able to sample from. So let's try to grab something sort of over in this gray type of an area. Maybe something right in here. Okay, so you can see now that color has been sampled. Now let's get our Rhino back on the screen. So we'll again go out of edit mode, so we're no longer in 2D editing. Control N to clear this off your canvas. And now let's take our Rhino and drag it back. And press the edit to get back into a 3D mode. Okay, so here we are back where we were. Now let's take this particular color, and with that sampled, go to color and fill object. So there we are. Now we've been able to sample a base color from that photograph and then use that as the beginning point of our textures. Alright, so now that we have that in place, what we'll start to do in the next lesson is actually begin the process of hand painting some of the various colors that we would see throughout this Rhino's body. So we'll get started with the snout and work our way up to the eyes in the next lesson.